Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to my review of Eminem's new album, The Death of Slim Shady, where Eminem, once and for all, kills Slim Shady, or so we're led to believe, because there are theories that if you listen to the album backwards, it's actually the opposite, and Slim Shady kills Eminem. We're not really going to go into that, we're just going to review it based on the order of the track list that's given to us. So this album is coming off Music to Be Murdered By. There's side A and side B, and before that you had Revival and Kamikaze. Music to Be Murdered By side A is definitely seen as the best of this whole era of new school Eminem, I'm gonna call it. And I agree with that. Side A of Music to Be Murdered By is definitely the best, but you know, there was some good stuff in Kamikaze and Revival, even though Revival is generally a really bad album. I see it as a lot better than a lot of other people do, but it's still a pretty bad album. So now we have this album, where Eminem, for the first part of the album, really brings back the old school Slim Shady, where he's just saying whatever the hell he wants to say, until Eminem, the Marshall side, the more logical side, just comes and he has a big fight with Slim Shady, and it ends in him killing Slim Shady in Guilty Conscience 2. And then after that, there's like a bit of a tonal shift in the album. There are some songs that have some Slim Shady-esque vibes after that tonal shift, but for the most part, it's a different tone. And then the album ends in a very emotional track, which is very similar to A Rose from Revival, where it's talking about if Eminem had died from the drug overdose, what he would have said to his daughters. And it ends the album just like A Rose ended Revival. So there's a lot of tracks on the album. It starts off with Renaissance, where it's a very short album, but I like the song. And then you have songs like Habits, and you have Brand New Dance, which Brand New Dance is supposed to be a song taken off of 2004's Encore because of Christopher Reeve's death. And then it's now put on this album as the really hardcore Slim Shady part of the album. So then you have songs like Fuel, which I really enjoyed Fuel, and then I enjoyed Houdini, the single. Then after Houdini, it's the tonal shift, which after that it's Guilty Conscience 2, including a skit in between there. I'm not really going to get into the skits, but there's Guilty Conscience 2, and then there's the real like tonal shift, which includes songs like Temporary. It includes Toby, which is the other single. I also enjoyed that song. And then there's Bad One, which is a more Slim Shady-esque song. And then there is another skit and the Somebody Save Me closing track featuring Jelly Roll, which is a very powerful closing track to the album. So overall, I think the album, it's a 6 out of 10. It's not really as good as, it doesn't hold a candle to the older Slim Shady type stuff. But it's a solid album. And I think it's probably the best that we get from new school Eminem, if you do consider this new school Eminem, because he does bring back some of the old school stuff. in this album. So it's the best of the recent albums we have. It's still not doesn't hold a candle to the old stuff because you just don't get the same feeling that you do listening to songs from Eminem show and MMLP1 and stuff like that. And there's also just the whole story of it. It doesn't really make sense that there are Slim Shady-esque songs after the point where we're supposed to get the tonal shift, which is just another small criticism I have of it. And it just kind of throws off a bit of the story. It doesn't really have to do with the Slim Shady thing that I'm talking about with old school versus new school, but something I wanted to throw in there that just doesn't really make sense. It's a criticism that I have. But yeah, it's the best of his recent stuff, but it's not his old stuff by any means. So yeah, overall, I think it's a 6 out of 10 album. That's what I'm gonna rate the album, 6 out of 10. And it's the best he's had recently. Second best is Music to Be Murdered by Side A, which is, I'd say, is a 5 out of 10. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the death of Slim Shady.